Moderator, commissioners here in the Assembly Hall and everyone watching online. Does life get better when you retire?
Don't know yet.
I should say the Pensions Trustees' written report is available to everyone. It's in your blue book. It's published on the Church website. As you've just heard, I'm here today on behalf of the Pensions Trustees, the body tasked by primary legislation for the safekeeping and investment of pension schemes' assets and for the proper administration of members' benefits. Individual pension schemes are established by employers, in our case, agencies of the Church of Scotland. The employer does this as a benefit to employees and their families. These employees become the members of the scheme, who, upon retirement, are entitled to receive payments from the scheme, commonly in the form of monthly pension amounts, paid until death. The government has set legislation to establish the principles of how schemes should operate, and the pensions regulator is tasked with setting and enforcing minimum standards, as well as for driving best practice in governance and oversight. For the type of scheme we are talking about today, the Church of Scotland defined benefit schemes, they work like this. Money is paid into the scheme to provide for the benefits which will be paid in the future. This money comes mostly from the employer, though members do sometimes contribute as well. The trustees look after the money, making sure it is safely invested. Legislation and regulation set out various standards and reporting which the trustees must satisfy. For example, at least every 3 years, the trustees must assess if the value of the assets is sufficient to meet the liabilities. The trustees are also responsible for ensuring that all benefits from the scheme are calculated correctly and paid timeously. Why am I telling you this? It's to set the background to the story I'm about to tell you. Now you have an idea of how things should go, the plot, and also the parties involved, the characters. We'll pick up the story after the latest 3-yearly financial health check, the actuarial valuation, which was required at 31st December last year. Put simply, the job here is for the trustees to assess if there is enough money in the scheme to pay all the benefits of all the members today and for all time into the future. If there is not sufficient money, the pensions regulator requires the trustees and employer to agree a plan for how this deficit will be made good. There are really only 2 options. The employer contributes more money and the trustees pursue higher investment returns. Commissioners who have followed this story over the years will know that the script has been pretty consistent on this point, with deficits, and I mean with a capital D, being the order of the day, decade, and longer. Last year, I was able to report this had changed and can now confirm the addition of a new word to the script: surplus. As confirmed by the scheme's actuary in the most recent valuation, all the schemes and all the sections are in surplus. For those interested in the numbers, a summary of the results is shown in the table in the Blue Book report. With no exceptions, each of the scheme sections is in surplus, and that's using a prudent set of actuarial assumptions. For each of our schemes, the Church of Scotland defined benefit schemes, achieving this surplus brings a number of significant benefits. Thinking about each of the main characters I mentioned earlier, the members, the employer, the trustees, and the regulator. For our nearly 5,000 members, each and every member will benefit from strong security of their accrued benefits. Put another way, members can go about their lives and businesses safe in the knowledge that their Church of Scotland pension benefits are secure. For the employer, remember, these are the agencies of the Church with responsibility for pensions. In this case, I'm talking about the agencies responsible for ministers and overseas missionaries, for ministries' development staff, for the church's central staff based at 121 George Street, and for the staff of Crossreach. Each of these agencies can look to the future, plan for the future, with the knowledge that they do not need to allocate money from their budget in respect of making up pension scheme deficits. The pension trustees, too, also feel these benefits. We can sleep at least a little easier, knowing that all the money needed to meet members' benefits and the cost of administering them are already held within the scheme's funds. I've mentioned the regulator, so should complete this section with the benefits they feel too. With our schemes in surplus, they can apply a lighter touch review of our submissions, a fast-track approach to use their terminology. This saves them time to deal with schemes in a far less fortunate position than ours. Indeed, there is another financial benefit which will accrue to the schemes each and every year into the future. The government has established an insurance company. It's called the Pensions Protection Fund, to handle unfortunate cases where schemes are in deficit and the employer has become unable to support them. This insurance company is funded by charging all pension schemes an annual insurance premium, which is based on the riskiness of each individual scheme. Now, given the strong position of our schemes, this surplus, the premiums we pay are now at their lowest possible level, having previously been higher. In monetary terms, this translates into an annual saving of over £100,000. This money will stay in the scheme and be used for the scheme's purposes. It's great news for members. Now, I said I was here today on behalf of the Pensions Trustees, and on their behalf, I have an invitation for you. We'd love to hear from you. Please get in touch. If you're a member of any of the schemes, what has your experience been like? What's worked well? What could we improve on? Please, just be in touch. Now, it's customary in this report that I cover at least a flavour of the work of the pension trustees over the past year. Today, I'd like to tell you about the work we've been doing on ESG. That's environmental, social and governance considerations. With the 26th Conference of Parties hosted in Glasgow last November, there was increased media attention, at least for a while, on climate change and the environment. Investment markets and the pension industry are making progress on what they can do to promote positive outcomes for the environment. One of the biggest things pension trustees can do is to invest scheme monies with climate change and the environment factors in mind. The Church of Scotland Pensions Trustees have discussed and agreed a policy on this, and we will invest in assets with the highest possible ESG rating. It's one where the traffic light system maybe works well, green for good and red for not so good. We will only now invest in the greenest possible ESG assets. I mentioned that media attention was briefly on climate change and ESG factors around COP26. Moderator, with the war in Ukraine, I know the General Assembly would welcome an update on this from the Pensions Trustees. Commissioners with a keen eye will have noted from the Blue Book report that the assets of the schemes stood at £514 million as at the 31st of December. The scheme's assets are predominantly, that's 80%, invested in UK gilts and inflation-linked gilts. The trustees do have an allocation to risk-seeking assets, and before the Russian invasion of Ukraine, there were holdings associated with Russia totalling around £500,000. That's 0.1% of the total assets. Following the invasion, that value is now nil, with the investment manager taking the decision to divest. Elsewhere, a further piece of work reviewing administration policies, practices and procedures has been completed this year. The review concluded that the existing administration was effectively managed and staff were well motivated. The structure, which includes support from different church teams such as payroll, treasury, HR, IT, accounting, works well, and that the pensions administration system is fit for purpose into the next decade. We all know that no one was untouched by the pandemic and related restrictions. In the pensions area, our pensions manager and her team ensured members' pensions were paid timelessly throughout, as well as ensuring trustee meetings continued, albeit transferred to an online forum. With restrictions now lifted, the trustees are starting to meet face-to-face again, though, having learned how to do it, we retain the flexibility to meet virtually. Many thanks are due to Jane MacLeod and all the pensions team for keeping things moving during this period of considerable change and uncertainty. During the year, Simon Bree resigned as the pension fund accountant to the schemes to take up a new position within the church, and Jenny Law was appointed in his place. Good luck, Simon, and welcome, Jenny. We simply could not have achieved what we have without the help and support of many people. I'd also like to thank all the pension trustees for their continued support and input. Hugh McKee sadly passed away in December last year. The trustees were greatly saddened by Hugh's death and would like to express thanks for his dedicated service and contribution to the work of the trustees. Robert Coulter, who joins me here at the table today, retires today after 14 years service, a magnificent 2 full terms of 6 years, plus 2 additional years to help us out over the last couple of years. Robert, thank you very much for your service, and the trustees wish you all the very best. The trustees are pleased to propose the appointment of Gillian Graham and Gordon Taylor as employer-nominated trustees for all 3 schemes, with effect from today, with your permission. Gillian and Gordon bring skills in pensions and the law, which will complement the existing skill set of trustees. General Assembly, if you approve Gillian and Gordon's appointment, I would be delighted to again be able to record a full complement of 15 pensions trustees. We are indeed fortunate to be served by so many skilled and experienced people who have the interest and energy to serve as pensions trustees. It's a timely reminder for me to take this opportunity to ask you, General Assembly, Commissioners in the room, in the hall, and everybody online, if you or anybody you know would have the interest, knowledge to serve as a pensions trustee, again, please just be in touch. All of us here in the hall and everyone watching online will have their own personal view and experience of the question I posed at the start. Does life get better when you retire? Now, looking around the hall, I can see that perhaps just 1 or 2 already know the answer to this question, and many more, myself included, will not know their own answer for a number of years. I can tell you that a 2021 research report found that, of all periods of our life, we are happiest and most content in retirement. I hope you've enjoyed hearing the story of the Church's defined benefit pension schemes. Thank you for listening. Moderator, as I'm not a commissioner, may I ask that the Principal Clerk moves the report?
Moderator, I so move.
Seconded.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the convener? Any comments? Can we move then to the proposed deliverance? 1 and 2. Convener? And the deliverance as a whole? Sorry. Yep, we're okay. Convener? Not a large deliverance, but a very detailed and informative report. And I'm sure that our clerk is greatly comforted by it as well. Our thanks to both you and the trustees who both carefully and diligently oversee the pensions of our church. It's all too easy for us to take this for granted, but our future welfare is invested in what you do and for this we are extremely grateful. Thank you. Right.